The storm took part of my roof on a Tuesday night. The insurance company took 11 days to look at it, and then denied the whole claim in a single form letter with one vague sentence I was clearly supposed to read, sigh at, and give up on. That's the entire business model of a bad claim denial. Not to be right, just to be discouraging, to send a letter so final sounding that a tired homeowner with a leaking ceiling assumes the fight is over before it starts. 6 weeks later, they paid the claim in full, plus the repairs they tried to exclude, plus an amount they very much did not want to explain to the state regulator who was, by then, asking them questions. I didn't win by arguing with the adjuster on the phone. I won the way quiet people always do. I read the policy they were betting I'd never read, and I found the one sentence that turned their confident denial into a very expensive mistake. I'd paid that homeowner's policy for 9 years without a single claim. Every month, on time, the way you pay for a thing you hope you never need. That's the deal insurance sells you. You pay into the quiet years so that the loud year, when it comes, is survivable. My loud year came in the form of a windstorm that peeled shingles off the back slope of my roof and pushed water into the ceiling of my daughter's bedroom. Not a catastrophe, but real, sudden, and exactly the kind of thing I'd been paying 9 years to be covered for. I did everything right. I photographed the damage the next morning before touching anything. I put a tarp up to stop further water, keeping the receipt, because a policy requires you to prevent further damage. I called it in the same day and got a claim number. I felt, honestly, like a responsible adult handling a bad situation correctly. Then the adjuster came, and I got my first real lesson in how a denial gets built. The adjuster was polite in a way that cost you money. Let's not even give him a name, because the point of the whole system is that he's interchangeable. A clipboard, a ladder, and a set of reasons to pay you less. He was up on the roof for about 12 minutes. He took a few photos, made a few notes, and said very little to me directly. What he did say planted the seed. He mentioned, casually, that some of this looked like wear and tear. That roof's age, that it was hard to say what was the storm and what was just time. Wear and tear. 2 words that, in insurance, mean not covered. He said them lightly, almost sympathetically, the way Greg the contractor once said non-refundable. A phrase designed to sound like a fact so you don't check whether it's true. 11 days later, the letter came. Claim denied. The stated reason was a single sentence. The damage was determined to be the result of gradual deterioration and improper maintenance, which are excluded under the policy. No breakdown, no measurements, no engineer's report. Just a conclusion, dressed up in policy language, and the quiet confidence that a homeowner with a tarp on his roof would rather cry than fight. I called, of course. Everyone calls. That's built into the plan, too. The phone tree took 20 minutes. The person I finally reached was kind and completely powerless. She read me the same sentence from the letter. When I asked which specific part of the policy excluded storm damage to a roof, she said she couldn't speak to that, but that I was welcome to submit additional information for review, which meant start over at the back of the line and hope a different tired person says yes. Then came the part that was supposed to close the door. She mentioned that if I disagreed, I could of course hire my own engineer and my own contractor and get my own reports at my own expense and submit them for reconsideration. In other words, spend thousands of dollars to maybe convince them to pay a claim they already owed. That's the threat, and it's a good one. Make being right expensive enough that giving up feels rational. A leaking ceiling, a denied claim, and a suggestion that fighting it will cost more than fixing it yourself. So I stopped calling. And that night, I did the thing they build the entire denial around me never doing. I opened the policy, all 41 pages of it, and I started reading, slowly, with a highlighter, like the answer was in there. Because it was. Here's what the adjuster counted on, and what almost every denied homeowner never learns. The exclusions in a policy are not a mood, they're a list. A specific, written list of what isn't covered. And storm damage from wind is, in almost every standard homeowner's policy, explicitly the opposite of excluded. It's the core of what the policy is for. On page 19, under covered perils, was the word windstorm. Right there, named, covered. And the exclusion they'd cited, gradual deterioration, was on page 26, but it had a companion sentence, the kind insurers write and hope you never connect. It said, in plain terms, that the wear and tear exclusion did not apply to ensuing damage caused by a covered peril. Meaning, even if my roof was old, if a windstorm, covered peril, caused new damage, that damage was covered. The age of the roof wasn't a reason to deny. It was a distraction. Their entire denial rested on blurring the line between an old roof and storm damage to that roof. And their own policy, in writing, said that blur wasn't allowed. But I didn't stop at being right. Being right is where most people stop, and it's why most people still lose. I kept reading. 2 more things were waiting for me in that policy. The first was on page 33, a paragraph called the appraisal clause. It said that if the insurer and I disagreed on the amount of a loss, either side could demand an independent appraisal and a neutral umpire would decide. Most homeowners never know this exists. It's a built-in referee, and it takes the decision out of the adjuster's hands entirely. The second thing wasn't in the policy. It was in my state's insurance law. Every state has an insurance commissioner, a regulator whose entire job is to police exactly this: insurers denying valid claims in bad faith. And most states have a bad faith doctrine, which says that if an insurer denies a claim it clearly owes, without a reasonable basis, it can end up owing far more than the original claim. So I built the file, not angry, surgical. The dated damage photos before the tarp receipt proving I'd mitigated, the claim number and timeline, the denial letter with its single vague sentence, and my own policy, 3 pages highlighted: Windstorm as a covered peril, the ensuing damage sentence that killed their exclusion, and the appraisal clause. Then I wrote 1 letter to the insurer, formal and factual, and I copied the State Department of Insurance. My letter did not argue. Arguing invites more argument. It stated, it quoted their own policy back to them by page and paragraph. Windstorm covered. Ensuing damage from a covered peril, not excluded by wear and tear. It pointed out that the denial contained no engineering report, no measurements, and no basis beyond a conclusion, and it asked them to either provide that basis in writing or reverse the denial. Then it invoked, by name, the appraisal clause in their own contract, and it noted, plainly, that a copy had gone to the State Department of Insurance for their awareness. That last part changes the whole physics of the conversation. An adjuster can stonewall a homeowner forever. What an insurance company cannot do is ignore a documented policy quoting complaint that is now sitting in the regulator's inbox because their license to sell insurance in that state depends on how they answer it. A denial to a homeowner is a routine cost of business. A pattern of denying covered claims, flagged to the commissioner, is a threat to the one thing the company can't operate without: their authority to write policies at all. 8 days later, a very different person called me, a senior claims specialist, using my policy number in a careful, respectful tone I had not heard from anyone at that company before. You see, a form letter is designed for a homeowner who feels alone. What it was never designed to survive is a homeowner holding the company's own policy in one hand and the regulator's address in the other. The adjuster had authority over me only as long as I didn't know the policy said what it said. The moment I quoted their own ensuing damage clause and named the appraisal process and copied the commissioner, the power quietly moved across the table. Not because I raised my voice. Because I'd read the contract they were sure I never would. The senior specialist opened gently. There may have been, she said, a misunderstanding in the initial review. They'd like to take another look. Would I be open to a reinspection? I said yes on one condition, in writing. That the reinspection addressed the specific coverage points in my letter by policy page. Windstorm as a covered peril, the ensuing damage sentence, and that if we disagreed on the amount, we'd use the appraisal clause their own policy provided, not another 12-minute denial. The reinspection happened. A different adjuster, an actual engineer this time, and photos that took an hour instead of 12 minutes. The report came back and said, in dry technical language, exactly what page 19 and page 26 of my own policy already said. Wind damage covered. The specialist called to confirm. Full approval of the roof repair, plus the ceiling damage in my daughter's room, the ensuing damage they'd originally lumped in with the denial, plus reimbursement for the tarp. In writing, before we hung up, with a claim reversal in the system, I could see myself. The company that had denied everything in one vague sentence now approved everything in one detailed letter. The roof got fixed properly, my daughter's ceiling got repaired, the tarp got reimbursed, every dollar the policy owed paid. But the claim was only my part of the story, because a complaint to the insurance commissioner doesn't evaporate when one homeowner gets paid. Regulators don't investigate one denial, they investigate patterns, and a denial letter with a single vague sentence and no engineering basis is rarely written just once. It's a template. My file, sitting in the commissioner's office next to others, became part of a picture the company very much did not want painted: valid claims denied on boilerplate, hoping homeowners would give up. I later learned the company faced a market conduct review of its claim denials in the state. The kind of review that ends with order changes to how they handle claims, and sometimes penalties, and always a paper trail that makes the next lazy denial far more expensive to write. Homeowners I'll never meet, who'd been told the same thing I was told, got their denials revisited. The company that bet a leaking ceiling would make me surrender learned the old lesson again. A policy is a contract, and a contract you wrote to protect yourself protects your customer just as well, the moment your customer bothers to read it. Here's the part I keep coming back to. When it was over, I did something small. I scanned the 3 highlighted pages of my policy, the covered peril, the ensuing damage sentence, the appraisal clause, and I saved them in a folder on my desktop labeled just in case. Then I sent them to my brother, who'd had a claim denied 2 years earlier and had simply paid to fix his own fence, assuming the denial was final. It hadn't been. His policy had nearly identical language. He reopened his claim, quoted his own contract, mentioned the commissioner, and got paid, 2 years late, for a fence he'd already replaced. The policy the insurance company was so sure nobody ever reads turned out to be the most powerful thing in the whole story. They'd handed me the weapon on the day I signed. It just sat in a drawer for 9 years until the night I finally opened it. I never argued with the adjuster. Arguing was the trap, because the adjuster's whole job was to make being right feel exhausting and expensive. Instead, here's the lesson I'd hand anyone staring at a denial letter. The answer is almost always in the policy you already own. Read the covered perils, read the exclusions, and then read the sentence right after each exclusion, because that's where they hide the part that helps you. Learn that an appraisal clause exists and that your state has a commissioner whose job is exactly this. Quote their contract back to them calmly and copy the regulator. They told me my loss was just an old roof wearing out. In the end, the only thing that wore out was their confidence that I'd never read page 19. So tell me, has a company ever denied you something they clearly owed, hoping you'd just go away? Tell me the story in the comments. I read every one. And if you believe the receipts always come due, hit subscribe, because here at Karma Files, they always do. Next time, bank quietly charged me overdraft fees on money that was never actually overdrawn. And when I called, they told me the fees were correct because their system said so. They were very confident in their system, right up until I made them show me the timestamps.